Kerry Wehmeyer show for Wednesday, October 12th. We're going to be going over to the Saints today and also Tulane football. Saints will take on the Bengals this coming Sunday, and Tulane will take on South Florida Saturday at 3 p.m. We are going to have take on South Florida Saturday at 3 p.m. So once again, sorry about that, folks. We're just looking for making sure we're having a connection. 3 p.m. So once again, sorry about that, folks. So we are live. So let me go ahead and switch it over. Switch my cameras. Okay, we will go over to Dennis Allen will have his audio conference call, so let me go ahead and put that in. So I'm going to try to put that in.
As for Chris Olave, Dennis, is the fact that we saw him doing anything today mean he's reached another step in the concussion protocol, or I don't exactly know all the steps that go along with that? But.
Yeah, I would say that he's following the protocol, and we're going to continue to follow the protocol to a T. And whenever he's cleared through the protocol, we'll expect him to be out there. But yes, part of him being out there today was all part of the protocol.
Did you guys just what do you guys see from Cincinnati when you look at them, and how are they kind of playing this year?
Well, look, I see a really good football team. I see a team that's playing really well on defense. I think they're a physical defense. I think they play extremely fast. I think they're really good on the back end of their defense. I think that secondary is probably one of the better secondaries in the league. They've got a lot of really good players. They've got a great scheme. Offensively, they've got as good a weapons as there are in the league. They got a really good quarterback throwing the ball to them. The runner's a good player. So it's just, from offense, defense, special teams, I think it's just a really, really sound, fundamental football team that's playing good football.
This is probably a pretty obvious question, but when a team does have as many weapons, how does that kind of change some of the things you guys maybe do defensively, or does it?
Well, look, I think as you do every week, you go into a game and you kind of think about how are we going to try to limit the things that they do really well offensively and maybe exploit some of the weaknesses. And so obviously they have some really good skill players, including the tight ends. And so, we're going to have to have a plan to try to, minimize, their ability to, be explosive, do a good job up front of being able to stop the run. Look, we're gonna have our hands full in the back end.
And speaking of those explosives, some of the ones you guys allowed last week, do you think those are kind of isolated and due to maybe some of the injuries, or is it something that you guys had to clean up?
Well, I would say this. I would say, if you look at statistically the teams in our league that give up the least amount of explosive plays, we would be, in the top 10 in that category. And so I would say that that's something that we've generally done a pretty good job of. Obviously, we had a bad day at the office the other day. We're working extremely hard to make sure that we get it fixed and that doesn't happen again. And we've moved forward.
What did you identify that? Is it cleaning up assignments, or what stands out most at the secondary
these last couple weeks?
Yeah, look, I think our offensive
Always
line,
getting a bad connection.
done a really good job. I think there was
Come
some varying
on.
factors that went
Get
into
this.
some of the sacks that we took earlier in the year, and I think some of that's from a protection standpoint has been cleaned up. I thought we've, overall, I think we've done a pretty good job in terms of protection over the last couple of weeks.
Did Jarvis Landry suffer a setback with his ankle?
I don't know if I would necessarily. I mean, I guess you would classify it as that. I don't think there was any, new injury. I thought he gutted it out over in London in the Minnesota game, and just hadn't been able to get back out there yet.
Does it feel like the team has turned a corner now?
Listen, I'm not very good at directions, so I think we're really just focused on this week and how do we try to get ourselves ready to win this game against the Bengals.
The last 6 quarters of offense have been pretty efficient, pretty productive. Is there any singular thing to point to, or is it just a collaboration of low penalties and low turnovers and just execution?
Yeah, I think overall you got to look to the execution, and if you're going to be successful in anything, you got to be able to to have a plan and to be able to execute that plan. And I think we've done a better job of that the last couple of weeks. So it's been good to see.
Hey Dennis, how do you feel about your depth in the receiver room, and also how has Keith Kirkwood kind of picked up on things so far?
Yeah, I think Kirkwood's done a nice job. That's always been one of the things that he's it's one of his strengths is that he's extremely intelligent, can play a lot of different positions, and so look, that's beneficial when you have a couple of guys that aren't there. So feel good about the depth, feel good about the guys that we have to go out there and play, and we'll go out there and play with those guys and see how it goes.
Dennis, I know Paulson Adebo, obviously, it's a group effort back there, but he was kind of hard on himself and said there's some things he needs to clean up after this last game. How have you seen his adjustment as he's come back from that injury and worked his way back into the mix?
Well, look, certainly I think the injury was a little bit of a factor for him, but look, I think you want your players to be their toughest critic, because if the coaches want it more than the player does, then that generally is not a recipe for success. And so I think the majority of our guys are their toughest critics. They're very, very hard on themselves, and they work extremely hard to, when they don't meet expectations, they work extremely hard to get those things corrected. And Paulson's no different.
Hey, Dennis, what are you kind of hoping to see out of Jordan Howard?
Well, look, I think first day out here, really just, see what kind of shape he's in to initially start, see how well he, picks up on the offensive scheme. He's a big physical back that over his career has been a 4+ yards per carry runner. So, feel like he brings a physical element.
Has it been a little weird just kind of with the guys getting claimed off the roster or getting claimed off waivers and not being able to bring it back? Has that been like kind of an odd little like roster carousel there at that position?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, you certainly can't 100% control when a guy gets claimed or if a guy that's on your practice squad chooses to sign somewhere else, but it's just part.
Switch this over, and we'll about to switch the cameras in. Okay, Coach Taylor, talking about this week's preparation with the Saints. So let's go ahead and put that in. See if I got a sound.
Over, I don't know, going back to 2018, 2017 even. And, DA's been there the whole time. And so really this staff, for the most part, I think the meat of their staff has been there, and they got a lot of similar players that have been there over the years, and really physical defense. They're really in tune with each other. They're very sound. They're not overly complicated. They play it really well, and they know all the nuances of the defense, and they know how to stress the offense, and it's just a really impressive group. I think Cameron Jordan's one of the premier DNs. He's always been. He doesn't look like he's missed a step, unfortunately. And they just got a lot of playmakers really at all three levels. Throws, really calm, to get to protection adjustments, get to the right run checks. Just a very aware quarterback in this league. Everybody likes being around him. He's still talented enough to do it at a high level, obviously. So there's a lot of reasons why he's able to continue to do it.
Safe to assume you're just going to play him every year now that he's gone.
Apparently.
Like you see him every year.
Yeah, I know.
Is there any carrying with what he did against Lamar, maybe the design run and the base of Taysom Hill, or is it completely different with how they use him in the run game?
Every team's a little bit different schematically with how they utilize things, but it doesn't hurt to play an athletic quarterback and then have another one the next week.
Do you, on the road in NFL, is it pretty much standard operating procedure at this point that you always go on a silent count, or is it still just dependent on certain stadiums?
Depending on certain stadiums, sometimes under center you can get away with being vocal. Sometimes you got to work a under center silent cadence. In the gun, typically you always assume going in that you got to use, the silent, and then if over the course of the game you feel like it changes, then it changes. But that can be, usually indoor stadiums are pretty loud. There's not a lot of leeway there.
Sorry. How do you think Joe is doing in terms of taking checkdowns? Is that something you
Great.
with
Joe Burrow? Yeah. You rarely have to. He's one of the best I've ever been around, and finding them very quickly. Kind of understanding where a soft spot in the defense is going to be, and instead of maybe exhausting a progression to get to him, which he does, he gets to him sooner, knowing that that's going to be the advantage for the back to be able to, or a tight end. You think about one of Hayden's against Miami, the first drive of the game, when not the third down conversion Hayden had, but the first down completion where they then got a defensive penalty for a late hit on Hayden. I mean, he went to Hayden quick as a check down, which is probably why that play was so effective, because he recognized the coverage, recognized the primary read wasn't going to be there, very quick to get to Hayden, and allowed us really to have a really efficient gain on first down.
Jonas sounded like he was going to give it a pretty good try to play. What's the plan for him for the week, and what do you think his prognosis is?
Yeah, limit him early in the week. Just take him day to day, and we'll see where it's at. It's encouraging that he wants to do it, and ultimately we'll just have to see how he feels as the week progresses. But he's a tough guy. He's you appreciate that about him. He's going to give it everything he can, try to make it through the week and stuff. And it's we really appreciate what he's done and the level he's played for us this year. He's just done a really nice job manning that left tackle position for us.
Who would slide in for him if he isn't able to?
We'll make that decision as it goes.
How happy have you been with protection the last couple of weeks? We asked you a lot about the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. Really good. Really Burrow had probably 3 hits, 2 of them were the sacks, and then 1 hit early in the game on third down. And again, it's not always the line. One of the sacks was just a communication issue we had, but I thought the line has really. I've been saying this even on some of our least productive games. It all goes hand in hand. I've seen them every single week continue to improve, and I think the last 3 weeks in particular, they've really giving us everything we need to be able to be effective throwing the ball.
How unique is Taysom Hill?
What's that?
How unique is Taysom Hill?
I guess I'm on my throat. Very unique. Very unique. Explosive playmaker. Just remember from his time in college, him doing all that stuff as well. You know, it's you got a guy back there that's an explosive runner, but again, he's got the background throwing the ball too, and so you got to treat that different than you would just a traditional wildcat, because he can play quarterback, and then he can go in the game and play tight end, and they can utilize him a lot of different ways that way. He can block in the run game, he can run routes, he can throw. So you know, those Swiss Army knives are very difficult to defend, and that's a nice weapon for them to have.
What kind of percentages are there in the different spots for Hill? I mean, they've listed him in the 2 weeks at tight end. Has he got more snaps at tight end than he does at wildcat or wherever else they use him?
I couldn't give you the percentages off the top of my head, but you just got to be prepared when he's on the field. You know, Lou and those guys will do a good job playing together.
Who is the mole in New Orleans that was vouching for the character of Von Bell and Trey Hendricks and Eli Apple for you guys to turn out to all three of them start playing so well here?
We do deep dives. The mole for Eli was Lou Anarumo. Having worked with him, you know, it's I knew one of Trey's college coaches. You know, we grew up together at FAU. Von Bell's reputation, I think, you know, it dates back all the way to whatever you want to research about Von Bell. So, you know, we got Von first, obviously, so then you get a chance to talk to Von about Trey and Eli, and obviously he wanted to play with those guys again. So that usually is how it works, is we try to utilize the relationships we have, and then if you got players that have played with those guys, players you trust their opinion and their approach, and they know what it takes to win championships. And obviously, Vaughn was quick to say that Trey and Eli being in the building can help us win championships, and so that went a long way for us.
How much, when you talk about a lot about the defense, the misfit toys, right, that all seem to be motivated by being cast off. This is kind of a prime example. How much did their experiences there, having success, and also kind of having motivation, be a driver for you guys rebuilding the defense?
Yeah, I think it goes a long way. I feel like I've played New Orleans so many times, and you had so much respect for their defense, how they were coached, the types of players they had in the unit, how they played, and so then when your research verifies that they're about what we want to be around. I've played them so many times. They played four championships, and so they know walking in the door. And you know, two of those guys have the Ohio State background that I really think has gone a long ways with us, of those guys understanding some of the intangible stuff that's important. So it's really, for us, been a home run for all three of those guys.
With Vaughn, did you go into free agency in 2020 looking for a safety like Vaughn, or was it kind of an opportunity that presented itself then?
I think it's an opportunity that presented itself, to be quite honest with you. It didn't happen the first day. If I remember correctly, right out the gate, it's just when Von Bell's available and out there, it's something you got to talk long and hard about, because we'd always had a high opinion of him. I remember writing a scouting report for him, you know, before we played New Orleans 3 times one year, preseason, regular season, NFC Championship game, all in New Orleans. So I'd give the presentation on the DBs, and I remember talking a lot about Vaughn and how impactful he was as a player. And so, again, going back to my assistant receiver days, and Cam getting actual reps over there, not as a starter, but start to integrate him into the defense a little bit. So, again, we'll play through the week and see how that unfolds.
Yeah, when you're Joe Burrow about the collaborative effort on offense, why is that so beneficial? How does that help, especially now when things aren't necessarily going as well as they could be?
Well, I've got a lot of respect for the guys that we have that work with us on the offense side of the ball. They're all here for a reason. They're all just, I think, insanely intelligent, much smarter than I am, and so, you know, why not use that resource as best I can? Whether we're game planning over the course of the week, whether we're taking suggestions during the game or between series. You know, Brian and I, we work side by side every hour of every single day. And so it's just, you know, it's not even a long conversation. It's just quick things to get your brain focused on what you need to focus on. And again, it's always been a great process that's really served us well. And that's just how we utilize it on this side of the ball.
I asked Joe about it. He said everyone takes ownership that way. There's no blame game or anything like that. Do you think that's one of the
benefits potentially?
Well, that's not what we're about. We want to put our egos aside. We don't want to ever shift blame. We're all responsible for the wins and the losses and the good things and the bad things. And I think that's what's special about this coaching staff is there's not this side of the ball played better in this game than this other side. And if you guys done your part, we would have won. There's none of that. It's just we're all in this thing together. And I think that's what's important to have a championship caliber team.
I know earlier Joe Burrow said from an identity standpoint, the offense is starting to find its strides. How have you seen that, and what is sort of the identity, for the offense staff if it's sort of not there already?
We're just doing what it takes to try to allow ourselves an opportunity to score points in every game, and that can shift over the course of the game. That can shift from week to week. Every defense poses its issues at the same time. You want to be attacking and make sure the teams are concerned about some of the things that you're going to do that are a core part of what we're about. So every week we go in with a plan that the plan is to score 60 points and score in every possession and get our defense a healthy lead. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But again, we're going to be an attacking offense and continue to do what we need to do. We feel like to move the ball and score some points.
What's going to be the point of emphasis when you talk to teams throughout the week?
The point of emphasis?
Is there going to be anything that maybe you emphasize throughout the week more than anything else that you normally would?
Going on the road and being focused, and find a way to get a road win off of a divisional game last week that's tough, and then great teams can rebound and go on the road again and find a way to win.
One thing that Sam mentioned that would be a focus this week would be finishing, and obviously the 3 losses have come on the last play of the game. Is there something to that good teams develop a way or a method to finish football games?
Yeah, that can show up differently. That can show up against Miami when we created that turnover late. People may not look at that as finishing because it didn't happen on the last drive of the game per se, but it did allow us to go score a touchdown to finish the game and make it a 2-score game to where the game was essentially over going into that last drive. So there can be plays that show up before the final finish that allow you to finish, if that makes sense. And those are we've made this reference before with our team in preseason games of when that moment is, maybe in the third quarter where you've got a chance to essentially close the team out, make a big play, get a 2-score lead to where now you can play ball in the fourth quarter the way you want to play. So it doesn't always come down to the last drive. There's moments that maybe don't get written about or the team feels that really happen that can shift the game, in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter.
You talk so much about starts, and Brian kind of mentioned yesterday that every game you guys come out because of the talent you have offensively, defenses kind of throw wrinkles at you that you hadn't seen on film. What are the keys to kind of starting fast against things that you maybe have not seen a particular team do?
Well, doing things that we believe in, that we're comfortable with. And it's you'll always have a scheme thought that you feel like is good during the week, and then if one element of it is off, you're in 2nd and 10, and so it's a good play that maybe just didn't work, and maybe saw the defense you weren't anticipating, or maybe something was just off with the play. And you
approach that.
Yeah, there's videos they send out, weekly about different areas of emphasis, and to the best you can. We always make sure all the coaches have seen that, especially for the positions that it's going to relate to the most. There's a reason the league is sending this out this week because they feel like it's an area of emphasis over the first 4 or 5, 3 games of the season, whatever it is, and they want everyone to be aware of it. So we do our best to make sure everybody's educated on that. And you can't cover everything every week. Maybe it's roughing the passer, maybe it's DPI, maybe it's some other element. And so you just have to do your best to educate guys over really a 12-month period of the rules, how we want to play. But then if there is an area of emphasis that they send out, we just make sure the players are aware of it.
How loud can the Superdome get?
Pretty loud.
What challenges do those present?
Yeah, you got to be locked in. You got to have great urgency, first of all, to communicate and get aligned. Because if there's any shift of a play that's got to occur, the quarterback can't be trying to get your attention, trying to make sure everybody hears it. You got to echo things. So really just the urgency and the communication's got to be on point. You got to be great getting in calls early. It's not so much for Lou because it's quieter on that side of the ball, so you can communicate a little bit better. But from an offense perspective, you got to be quick at the call. You got to try to not simplify calls necessarily, but be mindful of the verbiage. And so I think we've done a good job of that early in this week. The plan's not done yet, but we feel good about that.
Safe to say be on time.
Be on time with the calls. Yeah, don't be late.
Is there a way to simulate the crowd noise in practice any differently than you normally would for a road game?
We've always got the crowd noise out there, and we do our best to put it close to Joe and do your best to simulate that way. We're not going to go in the stadium like we did against the Chiefs last year and crank it up. That's one way to do it. But I feel like our guys in these environments have handled them really well. It's very loud. It's not always easy, but I feel like our guys. Joe does a good job with the linemen communicating cadence-wise, making sure we're on the same page. He does a really good job in the huddle, making sure everyone can clearly see his mouth and hear what he's saying. And so our guys have tended to handle that really well.
Will we all be able to use the indoor bubbles that ready to go, I guess, now if you wanted to use it?
Friday? Yeah.
Are y'all going to be there Friday?
Mm-hmm.
What's that going to be like? I mean, why Friday and kind of the process of that?
Oh, well, we want to go indoors and simulate being indoors, and so it works out great that we could use it sooner. We're going to use it on Friday. Again, the field space is good when it's warm weather to be able to utilize the field space for individual and special teams outside, but we want a chance to go in there and get a chance to maximize it. So they've done a tremendous job getting that thing up and running faster than I anticipated. And being able to use it, I really anticipated being able to use it as it got colder in late November. That was initially kind of the mindset, and they've done a tremendous job getting that thing up and running. And so it's really cool that they were able to get that done for us to where we can go play our first dome game of the season. I guess technically not, Dallas was, but inside and get some work in there.
Maybe we weren't necessarily looking for a wide receiver in the first round this past draft, but given your background with wide receivers, what do you think of Chris Olave and what he's been able to do in his rookie season?
Yeah, really productive, not surprising. Great college career, well coached in college. I think Hartline does a great job with all those guys. And it's probably because he was well coached himself down there at the Dolphins, But no, Chris has really transitioned well to the NFL. I think it's a good system for him. He's probably ran some very similar stuff that they're doing now. They use his speed the right way. He's got a great catch radius. He can really transition into a runner very quickly and get a lot of extra yards. And so, again, he's a first-round pick for a reason. And not all those guys hit the ground running as quickly as he does. He's done a really nice job of it.
Everybody's talking about the tweaks in the coverages, and they look funky, red zone or other places as well. Are you seeing a consistency of that funk, or are people adding funk to the funk?
No,
It's a different font every week.
Generally, teams aren't going to go out of their framework of what they traditionally do. So you play some team. That's hard for me to say that. Obviously, teams are very aware of them, and so we have to be mindful of that as we are, and try our best to put him in a good position to still be productive for us, which he was. I think in that final drive, he was a key point of emphasis for us and made all the plays that we gave him an opportunity to make, and was a big part of us going out and scoring the touchdown there. Even when, there's a pretty good idea that he was going to get the ball, he still made the most of those opportunities. So, again, it's on us to make sure we're putting our guys in the best position, giving Joe the flexibility to work through progressions and find other open guys if they're there. And those guys have done a really good job handling it when they do put an added emphasis on leaning a safety to him, doubling him on third down, clouding him, carrying him a little bit more in the clouds. Those are all just things that come with being a great receiver.
Paul referenced the three Saints going back. You also have Jamar who grew up down there.
Yeah.
Quarterback had a pretty decent career down here. Is there a cap on the number of captains? You were hearing my thoughts about an hour ago, I think, as I was walking through the hallway. When do I do my next one? Friday? I'll answer that on Friday for you. So I'm wondering if you got to play Oklahoma twice, but it was never in Norman.
Don't bring that up.
Is there a lingering what if, how special that would have been had you gotten that opportunity?
I don't know. Maybe. It was never a possibility, so I never really thought much about it, to be honest with you, until this moment. But that was a stadium I grew up going to every Saturday for 20 years of my life, so pretty cool. It's a little different. We're not playing at LSU Stadium, but we're playing down there, and I understand all that comes with that. So that's a neat opportunity for these guys to go back there to a special place where they've all had great moments down there in the area. whether they were Saints or Tigers, and LC being a part of that as well, playing down there in LSU. So we got a good group of guys that I'm sure that there's some special emphasis for them.
You mentioned Chris Olave kind of hit the ground running, started out pretty well in the first year. I mean, what kind of characteristics, what kind of traits do you think specifically allows first-year receivers to do that, to play well in the first couple of games?
Well, I think technique, understanding the technique, and again, I don't want to take away from Chris. This may be all of Chris. He may have understood that, but I also know that he's really well coached. And so you add all that together, and it gives you a great chance of success. And so not only at Ohio State, but at the Saints, they do a great job coaching these wideouts, continuing to develop these wideouts. They've done this for a long time, and so again, he's made the most of his opportunities. He was seemingly prepared for it, has taken advantage of it. They do a great job with how they utilize him. He's had good quarterback play with all these guys that have played quarterback and thrown the ball, and he's made the most of the opportunities.
Zach, was Khalid Kareem just strictly a health thing, and what do you expect the focus to be with that roster spot?
I can't give you a firm answer on that one yet, but again, we'll see. We like Khalid, and there's a possibility that he could come back in the practice squad as well. But it's just as we make some roster decisions, that was one of the moves we had to make.
Okay, once again, that is Coach
Take a look at
Zach Taros. So we're going to go over the video. We're going to break down the video from last week against the Baltimore Ravens. So we're going to do that. Let's go ahead and do that now. And I'm going to break down the... Okay, we're going to go ahead. Okay, once again, Joe Burrow. Once again, wide receiver. Let's break this down. Empty backfield. He had Joe Burrow's back there. Let's see what happens when he...
First 2 weeks, good the last two.
So nice little screen pass to number one. And he gets those yards.
Right away.
So one thing is for sure, you got to watch, be aware of number one, because he will be everywhere. If you throw him a screen, you throw him a disrupt his timing pattern, that would be good. So that's what they did on 3rd and 4.
As he throws incomplete.
Okay, Baltimore on offense, it's the Bengals on defense. So they're running their 4-down linemen on the line.
Snap ends up hitting, but is fielded finally by Devin Duvernay, who goes down the sideline.
So a nice little run right there. So they kind of got big yards off that run.
And a busted play turns into a big gain. Give Duvernay the Bengals side of midfield. Lamar first down.
Lamar throws the pass. Let's get it back to the... Sorry about that. Let's get it back over. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of alluded.
I hit the wrong button.
Not good the first 2 weeks. At 15 for Jackson looking deep. Everything's covered. He tries to escape.
So a nice little run by Lamar Jackson against the Bengals defense. So that's one thing you can do. See, if you add Taysom Hill in there and he runs, excuse me, he could get some yards off of them. So that was a run right there.
Been a great play by Hendrickson. The backfield for Jackson. Bengals bring 6 and Lamar.
So Jackson throws a nice little pass. Defense is swarming to him, but that was good. So he's going to drop back. So he's going to throw the pass right here. So it's going to go to this guy right here on this screen where I'm pointing my arrow. So what they're going to do is they're going to throw it out of bounds. So they won't lose yards like that.
Sideline, DeMarcus Robinson. Remember, he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a Raider for 6 months. Or do you drop him?
Okay, once again, this is on 3rd and 7. Shotgun formation. The Bengals are going to rush 4 on the line.
8 back into coverage. Just rushing 4 here. Jackson throws.
So he throws a nice little pass after that 4-man rush.
Complete. It's Andrews for the touchdown.
So we're going to fast forward to another play. So I'm going to go over to this play right here. So we're going to go over to
first down.
So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to scroll it back in there.
Another big opening again. It's Kenyon Drake through it this time. Into Cincinnati territory. And another first down.
Okay, this is once again on 2nd and 8. Shotgun formation, still rushing 4. The Bengals, so they're going to rush 4. So they're going to put their 4 down linemen on every single down.
I think the Ravens love this guy. He loves the Ravens. Will they find the right spot? Jackson, sideline shot, too tall, and intercepted.
So nice little defensive play by the Bengals. So this is something you got to avoid right here if you're the Saints. Don't give that ball to them because they can turn it into points.
This offense was moving, but Von Bell back in the safety position gets that overthrow, and a big turnover for the Bengals. The Jackson.
Okay, Borrow back in the shotgun, 1 back in the backfield. So let's see what happens on this play.
Pushing towards that, thus the inability to get a deal done.
So that will hand off the ball.
And it will linger all year. Mixon for the first down. So Cincinnati, I think you're right.
So it's a nice little run. So that's Nix right there. That's a nice little run. So you got to watch Nix on that on that run play.
Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins have not been targeted yet tonight. Burrow throws. It's complete. It's Mike Thomas with the catch. And on the run is Thomas.
Okay, once again, sorry about that. We had a little, they're trying to reconnect us. I don't know why. And that's a good catch right there. Okay, once again, wide receivers straight out. You have 1 running back in the backfield. This is on 1st and 10.
Receiver set so far. The 31, big space, Mixon.
So Nixon, this guy, this young man, I'm gonna tell you, he is a dynamic runner for the Bengals. So once again, you have to be very aware of where he's at all times.
Yard line. It's so funny. There are like 4 or 5 friendly words back and forth. Burrow throws over.
So nice little.
It's caught by the former Raven. Hayden Hurst reaches for the.
So Hayden Hurst gets in the end zone. That's another catch guy that can catch the ball. Is Hayden Hurst for the Bengals. So they got some good wide receivers on their cores. So
the touchdown. Oh, that is sweet for Hayden Hurst. Welcome back to Baltimore.
Out after 1 game.
Taking care of Lamar so far. The number's good.
Nice little screen pass. So they throw a screen.
Pocket. Curry back in the game.
And he gets some yards off that screen. So that was a good offensive play by the Ravens.
It's again to Devin Duvernay, who's continuing.
He was excited to see him.
Okay, shotgun formation. Looks like he's going to have to throw. Jackson throws a nice little pass play right there. So that's against the defense.
And throws it complete. A good finish of the reception by James Prochet, who takes it out to the 44-yard line, a gain of 8. And that was a rough.
Okay, once again, this is on 3rd and 12. Shotgun formation. Everybody, they have their lungs at 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's yep. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 of them on that line right there. So they're going to put some pressure.
The passer call. It's interesting to see how running quarterbacks are sometimes officiated.
So that was a good defensive. So that was with 6 linemen in the box. They get a nice little pressure on
pressure pressure from Hendrickson. The pass complete to the
From
Tylan Wallace.
Jackson.
Short of the first down. Pass deflections.
Okay, 3rd and 10. This is once again the shotgun formation. One back in the backfield. Everybody spread out.
In the lead. 3rd and 10.
So nice little screen pass right there. So he gets it out. So Samaje P-Rod, that's another guy. That's number 34. So he's another guy you have to be careful of right there. Is Samaje P-Rod.
30-yard line. Hakeem Adeniji, who's been a 6.
Now this is 2nd and 2 situation. They'll run the ball, so they're going to run the ball up the middle. So what they're going to do is get some yards. So it's 2nd and 2 situation. The Saints, if they have to, if they're going to endure that situation, they have to be absolutely careful. Because to be honest with you, that's something you don't want to be in. Is a short 2nd and 2, and they wind up getting the first down.
Tackle of his 2nd and 2 run. Samaje P-Ryan having a heck of a 2-minute drive here. Maybe they have the terrific long leg.
Okay, once again, Joe Burrow back in the shotgun.
Evan McPherson, if they get field goal range, and they do with that one.
So they throw a nice little pass. That's to Evan.
It's Tyler Floyd. First target of
Tyler Floyd. That's another guy, number 83. That's another guy you have to be totally aware of because he can catch the ball. So that on that play right there, that's perfect.
Mike McDonald.
Okay, shotgun formation. Morrow throws.
Out quick back shoulder to the tight end. Hurst brings it in.
So Hurst gets the catch right there. So that's another catch right there towards the sideline. So his ability is pretty good catching the football. So that's one thing you have to be in common with that pass. So we're going to go to another play. This is on 1st and goal. So I'm going to keep it right about here. Okay, 1st and goal for the Bengals.
Touchdown for the lead for Cincinnati. It's Mixon dancing inside the 5 to the goal line, and they mark him short initially. The Bengals.
So it's a 2nd and goal situation. I formation.
Will be pushed in and is in for the touchdown.
So Burrow gets the touchdown on that play. So that was a good offensive line push by their offensive line. So that's one thing in common right there. Is they have a pretty good push on it. So that's the plays that I showed you. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up because we have another game preview to give you. Okay, once again, we are going to wrap up. This concludes the Saints preview breakdown of the Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, that game will be at noon. So it'll be on, I think it'll be on Channel 4 or Fox 8. So you have to once again look on air. So for everybody else, everybody have a good rest of your Wednesday night. And we're for people who are on here, we're going to do the Tulane preview versus South Florida. So we're going to go ahead and switch over. So we're playing. So we're going to run some press conferences from Rolly Fritz and also the South Florida head coach. So let's go ahead and then we'll break down the film.
Very much. We're excited about the win last week against East Carolina. I thought we played great defensively and did a great job controlling the ball offensively. And I had a big block field goal by Patrick Jenkins from over John Arid and did a good job of field position in the kicking game. And like I always say, we flip the page, we're on the next ball game. South Florida, a very, very talented team. Really had an opportunity to knock off 23rd ranked, 24th ranked Cincinnati, at Cincinnati, homecoming, in front of a packed house. So we got our work cut out for us and just need to continue to do a great job with preparation throughout the week. Any questions? He's going to be out for the year, unfortunately. He had surgery sure last Thursday and Friday. And, it's tough because, boy, he did a nice job on that drive. I was excited about seeing it because I've been watching it in practice for a long time. And so we're, thoughts are with him. He'll come back stronger than ever.
Would you belabor him again, or would it be different?
Yes.
Say it's the same shoulders.
Yeah.
The chances of that happening are good.
Yeah, it's tough. It's just kind of a freak deal. He played 3 sports in high school. Didn't get hurt at all, I don't think. And then, it's happened a couple times here. So he'll bounce back. He's a tough kid. The best thing is points allowed too. We're up there really high. That's the main game as far as defense is concerned. We're just doing a good job of keeping things in front of us, doing a good job of tackling, playing with leverage. I thought we had pretty good pressure on the quarterback as well last Saturday. So, Coach Hampton, the defensive staff, just doing a great job. The kids have embraced it. But it always comes down to, can you tackle a guy in space? And they had some good players in space. Know what we were going to see in the first half.
I don't know why that thing.
Everybody changes stuff. You're going to see new things this week that we haven't seen in preparation for South Florida. But that's one of our goals is have a third quarter shutout, and we've done it quite a few times this year.
You were really high on Deal coming into the year. Looks like he's really got to year. How well is he?
He's been really played well. Unfortunately got hurt last year, ACL, and he's come back. The thing he does, he plays a great effort. He's made a bunch of hustle plays for us, sacks, chasing down. There was a play in the game Saturday. If he doesn't come and chase, that might have been a long play. I think it was only a gain of 8 because of his hustle. So, he's got good length to him and good pop, and he plays real hard. He's a coach's kid. He plays, he's been doing football forever.
I think their big play did he end up getting.
Yep.
That was
Yes, it would have. Did a great job of swiping the ankle and desperation tackle. We work on that a little bit, and he executed it during that game.
Which if your next victory will tie you for second on the all-time wins list. Any thoughts on
I didn't know that, so I don't know if that's good or bad. We just want to win. Our big deal is 1-0 every week, and we got to prepare each and every week in order to have an opportunity to win. We know that we're not going to roll the ball out, beat people. It's just not going to happen. And so our guys understand that.
Do you think that's kind of a testament to what you tried to build here, though, to kind of get the...
I've said it since I got here. Tulane has had great teams. They've had great players. They've had great coaches. Just haven't done it consistently over a long period of time. That's been the issue, the problem. And we've been close to rectifying it. We haven't done it to the standards I'd like, but we want to keep doing some good things. This week against USF.
USF 4 years ago, we were a pretty big underdog. This year we're going to be a pretty big favorite going in and treat everything. How do you make sure guys treat
I just prepare the same way. I don't change up any. I'm very consistent with what we do day after day after day after day. You can't figure out how we do things, and you've been here for a couple months. You're not real smart. So our guys know what to expect, and they know that we're going to do the same work as far as preparation is concerned this week, like we did last week, the week before that, and I think they've embraced that.
They played some terrible games and some terrific games. They almost beat Florida. They almost beat Cincinnati. When they're playing well, what are they doing?
Well, they got a really tough schedule. They probably have one of the toughest schedules in the country. And you're right. Woulda, shoulda, coulda with Cincinnati. Woulda, shoulda, coulda with Florida. Both games are away. People don't ever take that in consideration sometimes. They're just very talented. That quarterback led Baylor. I watched him play in the Sugar Bowl here against who did they play that year? Ole Miss. And I mean he's a darn good football player. And started in whatever it was, 12, 13, 14 games at Baylor. You know, there's not a whole lot you can throw at him that he hasn't seen before. Really good backs. 21's got tremendous speed, huge offensive line, good speed on the perimeter. You know, defensively, they've got an excellent secondary and number 11 linebackers. Really awesome players. So they're really talented. They've done a great job recruiting. You know, we go up against them down there in Florida quite often. I don't know if we've ever gotten a guy. You know, so they do a great job recruiting and got a good squad.
Coach, how big of a marker would top 25 be for the program?
Well, it'd be big, you know, but you just, I'm fortunate I'm able to focus on the task at hand, and we just gotta get this game this weekend. You know, that's what we're focused on.
Did you see something in your team last Saturday coming off of that emotional win over Houston that told you that we're okay after what had just happened with the Kansas State Southern Miss scenario?
I thought we had a really good approach to the game. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of screaming and yelling on the sideline. There wasn't, you know, that hype stuff out of the locker room last about. I've told you before, I had one of the greatest pregame speeches. My second game as a head coach was better than the one I had in my first game, and we won that one. The second game, I thought it was unreal. I was really proud of myself. And we got our ass kicked, butt kicked, excuse me. You know, so that doesn't matter. You know, it's the preparation throughout the week, and they had a real good, you know, attitude, I thought, on the sideline, and it was a hard-fought game. They're a whisker away from being 5-0 when we played that game against ECU. So they're a good squad.
What is it that, is there anything that you tell your team outside of the whole want to know this week concept? As you win, obviously, the magnitude, the importance continues to increase with, you know, potentially, you know, championship game, everything else that goes with it, top 25 potentially. How do you balance that and the, you know, the increased importance with the?
Well, I just don't think we should be the last team to be looking ahead. I still remember last year. All right, so we're just worried about this ball game with South Florida, and they certainly don't hear that out of my mouth about looking ahead or any of that kind of stuff. Everybody good? Yep. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're gonna go over to Coach of South Florida. So I'm gonna switch.
New week. And,
switch in.
Good practice. Good
Here we go.
Today. Everybody showed up and went back to work. Obviously, spent Sunday going back and watching the Cincinnati game, and you know, just as a staff watching it. Number one thing that stands out is our guys played extremely hard, really for 4 quarters. I felt like it was probably our most complete game from a effort standpoint, and you know, from the beginning, really all the way through. Obviously, we didn't make the plays there in the 4th quarter that we needed to pull that off. But the guys played hard. The guys played with confidence. The guys played with belief, and really, you know, I think showed a lot of grit and resilience. And you know, we talk about, you know, resilience is about facing adversity and rebounding from it to come back stronger than ever. And I think obviously don't have to go through all the stuff we've been through for the last 5 weeks, but to go through all of that and maybe have one of our best performances of the year, I think that's something we definitely can hold on to and build from. And you know, offensively, really proud of our offensive line. I mean, that was we knew going into it that was going to be one of the biggest challenges. And you know, Cincinnati, number 1 in the country in sacks with 23 sacks, and that was playing an option team in there too. But and then Brad went down early. Dustin Hall had to go in at center. So I mean, we had guys in a lot of different positions, and they did a really good job with no sacks against that front 7 who's giving everybody problems. And then also rushing the ball for 224 yards. I think that tied Arkansas for the most yards against Cincinnati this year, and we had 2, you know, running backs available. So really proud of those guys up front. You know, hopefully we can build off of that first drive, something we had failed to do all year long, and you know, really just kind of unorthodox. Decided we're going to take the ball at their place, and the guys went down and executed and scored there early. I thought that was big. Came back, got the interception on defense, then went down. Would love to get 7 points there instead of 3 points. But at the end of the day, there was about 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. We're up 10-0, and they'd had one play on offense. And that, we knew we were going to have to kind of thread a very tight needle versus that team with the guys that we had out and kind of where we are. In the first half, I think we played to our strength pretty well. Time possession, we had the ball 20 minutes to their 10 minutes. And then the second half, we just, offensively just didn't finish the drives that we needed to be able to keep the ball and be able to score. But defensively, and then the other positive about that, I felt like we played a lot better pass defense, obviously, than the week before. They came out and tried to throw the ball first place. That kind of told you what they had thought off the video. To hold them under 200 yards passing. I thought that was something that we could build off of there. And then we continue to have a couple sacks and tackles for loss. But at the end of the day, trying to pull that off, we had to play a little bit better than we did. We did a lot of good things, but wasn't quite good enough to go on the road and beat a team that's had a ton of success the last few years. And so that part's frustrating. But like I told our guys, it's not like we got to just start over and just do something different. If we were to go out there and just, get blown out and not even, be competitive, then you got to look at what you're doing and all that. But our guys are fighting, and really it's just, a few small details that continue to show up that we got to clean up and fix. Very excited. Our guys are very excited about coming back and being at home. We pull in Ray J on Saturday. It'll be the first time in 35 days that we've been there, and I don't think that's ever happened here before. And obviously, part of it's because of the hurricane there and relocating to Fort Lauderdale. But I know our guys are excited to get back in our home stadium with our students and alumni and fans. Obviously, homecoming's a really big deal, and our guys are looking forward to that. Tulane, they're having one of their best seasons they've had in a long time. They're 5-1, and honestly, one play away from being 6-0. They've done an excellent job of really developing their players, and they're playing at a very high level. Defensively, they've got one of the top-ranked defenses in the country. Out of 131 teams, they're number 4 in pass defense. They're number 7 in scoring defense, and they're number 15 in total defense. So pretty dang impressive right there, and they've played some good teams as well. And on offense, I think it starts with their quarterback, Michael Pratt. We've seen him the last 2 years, and really talented player. I think in his 2.5 years, he's responsible for 62 touchdowns, passing and running. And he's got a really good group of skilled players around him. They know their scheme inside and out. They got a good group up front, but they like to throw the ball. So that's going to be another challenge for us versus another talented quarterback. Seems like we're in that year every week. We're playing another talented quarterback. So another big challenge. I think that the biggest thing for us is we've shown that we can play at a high level versus two very talented teams on the road in their environment. Right, the two biggest environments that we played in were Florida and then Cincinnati last week. And what we've got to be able to do is we've got to be able to play at a high level each and every week. And one thing I talked with the team about, we did not respond well to the heartbreaking loss against Florida, right? The next week we came out against Louisville, and physically and mentally we weren't ready to play. And we talked about it all week, but at the end of the day, we didn't respond the right way. And this loss against Cincinnati is very, very similar to the Florida loss, heartbreaking right there, leading the fourth quarter, had a chance to pull something big off. But we've got to respond a lot better. We've got to learn from what happened between Florida and Louisville and make sure that doesn't happen between Cincinnati and Tulane this week. So that's a big focus for us, and I do expect it to get some guys back from injury standpoint on maybe a challenging side. Rashad Cheney did break his ankle. He's going to have surgery this week. He'll be out for the year. Safety Ray Thornton, who's been out the last couple of weeks, is going to go ahead and have surgery on his shoulder. He'll be out for the year. Kelly Joyner was back today, but he was just doing a little bit of individuals. I think that's a good sign. His scan that he got yesterday was very positive that his bone is healed. And I'm not ready to say that he'll be ready to play this Saturday because he hasn't been able to practice in whatever it's 4 or 5 weeks. But just getting him back out there to go through individual and start running again and all that tells me that he's definitely on the path back. I expect to get Mikey Dukes back. He looked really good today. And then, too early to tell. Some guys that practiced today that we'll see how they. He lost his father last week, and definitely something that difficult for anybody, especially when you're off at school. Is very challenging. He was able to go back and see his dad the week before, whenever we were down in Fort Lauderdale, and we got the word that his father was not doing very good. We were able to fly him up to Atlanta to be able to go see his dad at the hospital, but he's dealing with all of that. So our thoughts and prayers will be with Mr. Greer this week. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
When you looked at the fourth down, single-handed into Becky play on film, what did you see? How did you analyze it?
Yeah.
It was made, what did you see?
Yeah, and we talked about it, and I think Gary would tell you the same thing. We wish he would have ran it, and he wishes he would have ran it. Looking back at it, just to kind of get technical with it, he was supposed to read the linebacker that's right there. And if the linebacker runs with the back, then he's supposed to keep it. And there was a very nice hole there. And but the linebacker stepped up and then turned and ran right at the time that Gary was going to throw it. So for us as coaches, I think we can do a better job of two things. Number one, if we call it that same way, tell him, hey, we're calling it on 4th and 1, and you're running it unless that guy's blitzing and it's super obvious, but you're running it. So I think we could have done a better job of coaching him on that and not let it be a normal RPO where it's kind of 50-50 and you kind of live in that world. Then the other thing that we could have done a little bit better is probably clean it up for him and maybe jet the running back out a little bit early before we snap the ball. But it was one of those that's very gray that when you watch the read as soon as the ball snapped, he stepped up and then he took off. And Gary watches him step up and goes to throw it. But at the end of the day, we've got to coach that a little bit better and explain to him that the intent of the play was to pull the linebacker out and run the quarterback. And, so we take responsibility of that, and Gary does as well. And he did something that I haven't seen in the 2.5 years that I've been here. He stood up in the team meeting yesterday after I got done and took responsibility, for that play, which I thought was pretty special and unique. And hopefully that'll be a kind of a point we can look back on later in the year, seeing a guy stand up in front of his teammates and take ownership, in those kind of situations. Even when honestly it was a very gray deal. I think we could have coached him better to have him prepared for that exact situation. So that's the truth on that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think a positive is if you'd told me at the beginning of the season we were going to play Cincinnati, knowing what they had up front, their front seven, and we were not going to have Dono, and we were not going to have Brad, and Meach was going to be playing with 1 foot. I mean, he's a little numb, basically, and he's out there doing the best he can. I would have told you, it probably was going to be tough. Right? And also, Josh Blanchard, our backup tackle, is out for the year, and then Zach Mendoza, who we brought in as a transfer tackle, got here and had a medical condition, and he's coaching with us right now. So if you'd told me all of that, and then we still would have gone out and been able to execute the game plan and had no sacks and run for over 200 yards. So I think that part, those are the small things that you see as a coach. It doesn't make the loss any less devastating, but it does give you, I've also been a part of losses where there's not a lot of bright spots. You just got your butt whipped. And that wasn't that situation. There was a lot of guys that really, you also think about like K1 Powell. He hadn't played a whole lot, and we went into that game with just Batee. I think Batee, he's having an incredible season. He makes a lot of plays, and he's just been more durable than he's ever been. And he's a guy that's things are a little bit less common. Is Jatorian Hansford, who signed with us to play defensive end and had multiple offers to go other places to play defensive end. And then he gets here and we have several injuries inside, and we go to him and say, we need you to go play inside. He says, yes, sir, whatever to help the team. And hadn't batted an eye. Like, that's the stuff that gets me excited, honestly, because you don't have to go very far and see there's a lot of the other, right? And I'm going to take my ball and go home, and I played my 4 games and this didn't work out. And man, these guys, obviously we haven't played as well as we want to play, and everybody in there is frustrated, but every time I show up in that team meeting and they're all there with an attitude and they're frustrated, with an attitude to show up and go back to work, that encourages me that the inside is much improved. Now ultimately it's just a few plays that we got to kind of get over that last hump.
Speaking of defensive line, I thought we did a couple plays before Shaney went out that he's been playing good ball and Hansford obviously Jason's gone at that.
Right. Yeah.
A couple good plays here and there. And look at that unit in terms of where they are this year. Sack-wise, they've already matched what they had a season ago.
Yeah.
Just, how impressive.
Yeah, I think the big word is progress. I think that's probably the big word. I mean, I think that group can still do more, and we need them to do more, but they've done more than they had previously. And and it really something I've challenged them on, earlier in the year is just straining and fighting to get off of blocks and being relentless to make plays. And I've seen more of that the last few weeks than maybe I did at the beginning of the year. I didn't feel like we played very well at all up front against BYU. And but that group has, and you're right. I mean, obviously our sacks and TFLs were very, very poor the last 2 years, and it's improving now. So I think that's something that we can build off of. And again, we've had maybe 4 weeks in a row without Yates, who's kind of one of those staples there inside. And so hopefully we get him back. It'll continue to improve.
Look at the amount of injuries we've had and all the type of players that are hurt. Say bad luck. Is there an explanation?
Yeah, we've I'll look into it and think about it. I think if they were all the same thing, like right now the most common one we're having is a broken wrist. So I don't know if that's drinking more milk. Seriously, those are the questions that I'm asking. Like, there's not anything that I know of that would lead to that. If we had a lot of the same injury, like when you're having like a broken foot, a broken wrist, again, Dono, like it's all been kind of different injuries. I think to me, when you have a team, sometimes you'll see teams maybe have like 5 to 6 guys that tear hamstrings, or even 4 or 5 that tear an ACL. If you're having a lot of the same injury, then you kind of like, all right, what are we doing? What are we not doing? Need to kind of look into that. But honestly, I think we just had some bad luck, and I'm hoping and praying that that it's kind of the first half of the season. And what I told our guys is, hey, the way that we fought last week, all of a sudden we get some more guys back, then watch out, right? And that needs to kind of be our mindset and our attitude. And the guys that are out, they will want to get back. That's another thing you can kind of watch on the sidelines of practice. Like these guys want to get back, and they want to help their team. A couple of those guys know they could have helped Saturday, and that hurts them. So, at the end of the day, right, the only thing we control is our attitude, and you can talk yourself down a dark hole real quick, thinking about all the injuries and things that have happened. But at the same time, we got to respond the right way, and I think that's a good place to start. But also, I'm very cautious because I don't, whenever my time is done here, I don't want people to be able to say that I used a bunch of excuses. I want to say, hey, this is what it is, and we moved forward, and we were positive in everything that we did. And so I've tried to be careful in that, but you can't hide from the reality that it has an impact. And I think ultimately, if I think about some of our later years at Clemson, you could probably lose 10 guys off of one of those teams, and nobody would notice. I mean, I had years where T. Higgins and Mike Williams were my backup receivers, you know, and so somebody goes down, another first rounder goes in, and hopefully, you know, we'll develop that over time. But I think kind of for where we are going into the season, you know, we felt like if we had everybody, and you're never going to have just everybody, but if we have 95% of our guys, we felt really good about, you know, what we were going to be able to do, and we've probably been in that 75% range. But again, the thing that I appreciate is the guys really haven't blinked an eye, and they keep moving. No players have made excuses or, you know, pity me or this, that, and the other or whatever, or it's just not meant to be. There hasn't been any of that. Where the guys have been showing up and next man up. And I think ultimately the net positive, you know, the disappointing part is when you lose some close games and have a lot of guys out and just wonder if we'd had this guy for that 4th and 1 or goal line play or whatever, could it have been different? That part's hard. But the net positive of it is that we're getting a lot of other guys good work. Like K1 Powell's getting a lot of work, and those other younger guys are getting a lot of work. So when we do get the older guys back, now we truly have developed depth during the season, right? We talk about developing depth, and we practice 2 or 3 groups every day, right? But really, I mean, there's a whole nother level when you're having to go out there and play, and they're counting on you. So I think the net positive for the rest of this year and beyond is there's a lot of guys that are getting meaningful snaps, and the only way you learn is you go out there. You have some success and you fail, and you learn from that, and don't make the same mistake, you know, the next time you get back there. So. Yes, it's a challenge, but you know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to improve in our overall team health here down the stretch. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I brought it up in the locker room at Florida, and I might have even told y'all that at post game, because Louisville had lost maybe the day before, Friday night, I think. Friday or Thursday, I can't remember. They lost to Florida State, where they maybe felt like they could have won, and then we turned around the next day and lost to Florida, felt like we had a chance to win. And so literally, it was one of the first things that came to my mind in the locker room after the Florida game, as I said, hey, both us and Louisville are coming off heartbreaking losses to good teams, and the team that's going to play the best next week is the one that's going to be able to move past it, and we've got to find a way to move past it. We talked about it Sunday and Tuesday, and maybe you don't talk about it. Maybe that's what you're supposed to do. Because I talked about it a lot, and we didn't get over it. Now there's also the physical toll, right? You know, I mean we had a deal at Clemson too. If you looked at everybody's record after they played us at Clemson the next week, they didn't play very well, and we took a physical. There was a physical toll to be paid after the Florida game. I know we got some guys banged up a little bit Saturday, but I felt like we came out overall, other than Cheney and Brad Cecil, I feel like we came out healthier. Like Gary looks really good right now in practice and all that, where he did not look good after, you know, the first half of the Florida game from a health standpoint. It took him 2 weeks to get over it. So, you know, I think all you can do is, you know, address it and move forward, you know. But it's a challenge, and that's, I mean, again, you can talk about it, but we didn't do it. And you know, the other thing is we played our best 2 games against on the road in big environments.
As you know, these past games, he has thrown an interception, he's managed the offense, you know, pretty well.
Yeah.
Did you see something shift in him after that Louisville game to you know, right the ship a little bit?
Well, I'm sure, you know, that'd be something you could ask him. I definitely think there's probably been things with him in his own mind that he's worked through. But one thing that's obvious to me that I know is a big deal is he got his receivers back, right? He got Weaver and Jimmy back. You saw Jimmy against ECU and then Weaver, you know, impact last week. So getting those guys back, like you're, you know, that's important. But I'm sure with Gary, you know, I mean, all of us, players, coaches, everybody, even though we knew we had some challenging games, you know, we didn't envision the first 6 games going the way they have, and didn't envision the first 4 games going the way they have. So I'm sure for him, trying to kind of work through all of that, and then at some point, you got to make a decision that, you know what, I'm here, and we're going to have to do this, and the only way we're going to get out of this is if we get ourselves out of it. And so I saw him trying to find his way in that leadership kind of role and really kind of take charge. And then, you know, again, I think just the reality of it is, I mean, he had a pretty bone bruise, whatever you want to call it, shoulder and all that stuff. You know, he wasn't 100%, you know, after the Florida game, but he wouldn't hardly let the trainer see him. He didn't hardly want to let anybody see anything because there wasn't any way he was not going to play. I mean, the trainers probably gave him an out at the halftime of the Florida game based on some things they saw, and he got up and left and went in the locker room and got in the offensive huddle and said, "Let's go." And that's obviously we're not going to let guys play if they're truly injured, but when you kind of get in that mode where you could go either way, you know, I'm pleased. But I wouldn't say that I don't think there's like this one moment. I just, from what I've seen from Gary since he's been here, what I saw from him in fall camp, I knew that from our team and from him, the first few games wasn't, you know, his best or our best. So I knew that eventually things will sort themselves out a little bit, and feel like that's kind of happening right now, not just with him, but overall in a lot of areas.
And then looking at Tulane, I mean, it seems like their 2-10 season last year was more of an anomaly with what they've been building over the last 4. What have you seen as the biggest improvement with that team?
Well, and again, it's hard, you know, you're just watching them on video. They're well coached. They play extremely hard. They're very athletic. I mean, their safeties and corners, I mean, they're extremely athletic. Their linebackers are excellent players. Overall, just team speed. I think they've done a good job of recruiting and developing that. And the quarterback's playing at a high level. They just look like a very confident team. You know, defensively, they don't do a ton of stuff, but the better you are, the less stuff you have to do. And so it kind of makes sense that, you know, they're just all around. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. They play hard, and they've recruited well and developed well. I think there's been maybe a couple of transfers they brought in that are having a good impact for them this year. But you know, but we saw last year, even in the midst of what was a down year for them, they played extremely well against us, and that was, you know, a disappointing performance for us towards the end of the season last year. So we got to make sure that we do the things required to play a lot better against them this year.
The things you're speaking about with Gary from a leadership standpoint, apparently Wayne Boyle has exhibited that too. In terms of dealing with his teammates, big getting in their faces and all that. What have you seen from Wayne that from a leadership standpoint?
Appreciate you bringing that up. And I think with you know, Greer a lot of times has kind of been the voice of that defense. He's a little bit louder sometimes than Boyles has been, but with Greer being out the last few weeks, and you know, Boyles really we're limited on the number of hours by NCAA that we're allowed to meet with our guys. So Boyles has been organizing defensive team meetings for them to come up in the evenings as a defense and watch video. Like, those are the little things, you know, that it takes when you're trying to kind of get over that hump a little bit. And then just overall his demeanor and intensity in practice. I mean, those guys, this is important to them. They know this is their last year. They've been here for a long time, and they're running out of games, right? And they want to. They came back because they wanted to leave it better than maybe how it had been the last few years. So this is a very important.
All right.
Myself and our team.
Let's go ahead and do the film. Okay, once again, we'll go ahead and do the film. So let's begin with film breakdown. Okay, once again, South Florida playing against Cincinnati. Wide receivers. So they're going to run their one wide receiver. They have one wide receiver to your right. And let's see what happens on this play.
Section. South end of the stadium. Here's Batiste. He's got some room.
So Batiste is one of their running backs right there. Number 21. So he's a nice little run going between the tackles. So that's one thing the Tulane defense has to do, is try to cover that that run up. That's what you have to do.
Inside the 10, inside the 5, and into the end zone for Brian Battie, and USF strikes first.
So a nice little run. So Cincinnati on offense, South Florida on defense.
Bryant, though, looking down to the bottom.
It's a nice little pass play right there. So that was for first down.
Completes it to Jaden Thompson. Thompson breaking tackles. Still on his feet. Into the end zone for a Cincinnati touchdown. And the Bearcats answer.
Okay, go to the second quarter now. Cincinnati throwing the ball. So nice little pass play. And they get in the end zone for a touchdown.
Nick Martner.
So we're going to go over to another play. I'm going to rewind it to another play.
Goal.
Okay, this is 3rd and 9.
With time toward the corner. He's got.
So they throw a nice little speed pattern right there against the Cincinnati defense. So that was a touchdown right there. So once again, you got to be careful of those fade routes if you're the Tulane defense.
Weaver, he's got a touchdown. 4th touchdown pass of the season for Gary Bohannon. That one took a while to develop. Good protection up front.
Let's go ahead and go to another play. Okay, this is on
handoff.
So nice little handoff right there on 4th and 1. We'll go to one to another play. Okay, this is on 1st and 10. South Florida has their wide receivers spread out. One back going in motion. So that's one back going in motion. So let's see what happens on this play.
Gary Bohannon keeps it to himself.
So Gary Bohannon, this is one of their running quarterbacks. So you have to be aware of where he's at all times, because he can run on those plays. He can become the from the thrower to the runner.
It's to the outside
in an instant.
Wheels, and he's got green grass in front of him. Bohannon pushed out of bounds just outside the 30. Up to the line here, fakes it, throws into the end zone.
So he throws a nice little pass.
And USF.
So to number 10. So it's a good reception right there. So you got to be aware of their wide receiver core. So they got some pretty good wide receivers on these plays right here.
F is back in front.
So Cincinnati.
Big hole, big play. McClellan to the house.
Cincinnati slices their defense. So, like I said, if you could slice their defense, that'll be absolutely excellent. Connect. I don't know what's going on. Why is it doing that? Okay. We switch it out. Okay. Once again, thanks for joining us for this special edition of Sports Talk, Saints preview and Tulane preview. We'll be back on tomorrow for the Southeastern preview. That will be most likely later on in the that'll be in the morning around 11 o'clock. So we will be on the air. Once again, everybody have a good rest of your Wednesday night, and we'll see you again tomorrow.